792.458.
Thank you, Reed.
You're welcome, sir.
Show up. See, you looking at an answer.
Although traveling at or near the speed of light has always been theoretically possible, it has long been considered physically impossible. Until the discovery of Colossus.
Right, welcome everyone. This is episode 46 of the Comics in Motion podcast. I am Chris Phelps, and my co-host and good friend is Mr. Dave Horrocks.
Hi, Chris, and hi, guys. Welcome to the Comics in Motion podcast. What we like to do here is we like to review media like movies, TV shows, and games that are based on comic books. Myself, I'll be looking at the media from the perspective of a long-time comic book fan, and my co-host Chris will be reviewing mainly from that media perspective, and we'll walk through our given choice of the week and give our thoughts and different perspectives on it. What we also like to do is we also like to spoil everything. And so if you haven't watched our choice of the week, then we'd advise you to proceed with caution, apart from this week. So probably, I don't know, if you're a sucker for punishment, watch our choice of the week or just listen to the podcast and enjoy our suffering.
Yes.
So, Chris, we do like to start off with a bit of the news and, you know, breaking the fourth wall, as you like to say. So we're recording this on Tuesday night. We had some really absolutely tragic news yesterday, and that was that Stan Lee had passed. Yeah,
absolute legend, obviously. My wife came to the door. We were recording our other podcast at the time, and I was waiting for you to come in the room once, and she come to the window and was tapping. I was like, "What? What's going on about?" And she knows, even she knows who Stan Lee is. She's had to endure all the films that I take her to, Dave, the Marvel stuff, and she always is waiting for his cameo in the films. And when she said to me, I was like, "Wow!" And obviously for you, it's got more of an effect on you as a comic book fan, and as a predominantly Marvel fan as well. So just sad. I mean, a great innings at 95 and such a good guy, and what he's done for all of us, really, Dave, all of us nerds, making us believe that being different is normal and, different people can change the world sort of thing. So got my total respect, and I think he'll just go down as a pioneer for forever, really. Yeah, absolutely. And with what we chose this week as well, there's something kind of the planets have aligned, I guess. It's more luck than judgment. We didn't plan this, so, releasing or talking about slightly earlier than what we would normally, what we're going to do this week. So we're going to look at the Fantastic Four, which was really where the Marvel universe as we know today really started off, and Stan Lee sort of came into his own. But, I think we do have to dedicate this episode, don't we, to Stan Lee as our pitiful little offering to the god of comic books, but the guy is an absolute legend. And I was absolutely distraught. I mean, actually, so Chris, when did you first become aware of Stan Lee and who he was? It's mainly from the cartoons, Dave, the Spider-Man cartoons, because he was the narrator of them that I used to watch. So that's where I to know his voice from. As I've mentioned a few times, I was a big fan of them sort of 60s. I said 50s in originally, but talking 60s cartoons. I absolutely loved them. And I'm knowing from there and knew him sort of that background all the time was every time we watched the cartoon, it was always created by Stan Lee was the name that stood out. Obviously, we had Jack Kirby and stuff as well with the comics and stuff, but it always come up with Stan Lee, didn't it? And he was like the main guy. So mine is more from the cartoon side of it. So it's not just a case of knowing him from, say, the last maybe 18 years of cameos in films that you'll say start with the X-Men or whatever. We're going back a lot longer into my childhood. I know who that guy is. So, and he used to pop up every now and again in the cartoons. So, yeah, it's just sad. I mean, what about yourself? Obviously, it must be from the comics, Dave.
Well, to be honest, so when you start reading the comics, you're more into the characters. You're less aware of the writers, the artists, and what have you, I think. And so my first memories are probably that. I can't remember. It's either between Spider-Man or the Hulk.
Yeah.
And he had that enthusiastic delivery, didn't he? About
Spider-Man and, the Hulk, and, he just wanted you to watch the next thing and get excited about what you were going to see, or at the end, what you had to look forward to next week. And so that was, I think that was my earliest memory of, what I later knew as Stan Lee. And so it was only from that. And I actually briefly, I say I met him, but, I was in a queue of about 2,000 people, I think, so he was at London Super Comic Con a few years ago. And it's amazing, because you've got in the line waiting to meet him, you've not only got, all the comic nerds like me, but you've got all the younger creators as well in the line, just waiting to meet this absolute legend who has absolutely shaped what we know today as that comic book world. So obviously comics aren't just Marvel, but it's got a big influence over everything. And if you look at kind of DC and where they came from, you had characters like, Superman, Batman, Green Arrow, Wonder Woman. They were you're the DC guy, Chris. I'm more of a Marvel guy. So I'm going to speak with a slight bias here. And I know I am. So I'm going to call it out. I'm going to call myself out. But those weren't relatable characters as such. They might have been say Wonder Woman. She may have been relatable to young girls who relate to her as a strong female character. Completely behind that. But she was made of clay. And I can't get behind that. Whereas, the likes of Spider-Man, the way he was written, he had real world problems. And unlike, characters that are set in Metropolis, set in Star City, Gotham, you got characters in New York. And again, he brought modern day problems, modern day at the time, because, mostly his writing is in decades gone by, to comic books. And I just think he's had such a massive impact on not only the comics, but the whole genre, and we're only seeing now in the last, 10 years, that comic book movies are just a Goliath that is dominating everything. It's the biggest genre. It's like Westerns, in years gone by when every movie was a Western. He's absolutely been at the forefront of that. And, Absolute was a living legend. And unfortunately now he's passed. And so God bless you, Stan Lee. There's not many people in life who will touch so many people that you did.
Yeah. No, that's a great eulogy, that, Dave, I think, to be honest. Like you say, from our little small corner in the comic book and movie, world. And really nice, mate, that. Really nice. I don't think I can add much to that.
Well, so we don't want to be on a downer. That's not what we're really about as a podcast. And again, I say, dedicating this episode to Stan Lee. So if you're up there, mate, good on you. Let's get into our iTunes reviews.
Yes.
So as always, we are shameless in how we plead for our 5-star Apple Podcast reviews, or previously known as iTunes reviews. And what we do like to do is we like to read out some of those that we've got. So, Chris, do you want to give us a go first?
Yeah, well, this first one, Dave, is great podcast from knowledgeable hosts. And this is from Danny_MCN. And I believe Danny is also the Dark Knight. So I'm going to read this review out as the Dark Knight, Dave. Bit of DC there. Here we go. Great podcast from knowledgeable hosts. Very easy to listen to and well worth a listen. Thanks for that, Danny. Wonderful. And I've not been practicing that all day, Dave.
Oh, have you? Oh, man, I can't believe you've done me there. So there must be something with the planets aligning, because we've actually had a voicemail, and it's actually come through to read this next one.
Insightful and fun. These guys know their stuff. some really interesting tidbits about the differences between movie heroes and their paper counterparts. Check it out.
And we all know who's just got the Blu-ray version of The Dark Knight Rises, don't we, David? That was good, mate. That was better than mine. That was really good. Really good. Absolute class. I give you that, mate. That was, you've definitely been studying Bane there, because that ending, you went dead slow, like when he does a sentence and he just trips at the end, doesn't he? Like,
you know what? I would love to say that was practiced, but I've got a Mac open here, and I was actually moving. So I had iTunes open, and I had to stretch the screen out a bit because it wouldn't say what the last bit was. But it's ended up being, sorry, Chris. No, I've been practicing that one all day.
I tell you what, David, I'm going to admit this. I was sat there before and I'm making tea. So my wife Sam's in the gym because we have a homemade, I have a home gym.
Yeah.
Gym training. And I'm doing I'm sat on my back doorstep, right? And I'm on iTunes looking, and there's actually a Bane voiceover app, and I'm there doing it, right? And I swear to God, I'm sat on the step, right? He's freezing. I've got my Rocky dressing gown on there, the old Italian dressing gown, the hood up. And I'm there on my step going, Mr. Wayne. And he sounded like a robot. Then we had Donald Trump, Dave, and it was like, "Hi, Donald Trump." I liked him. I was just like, I'm giving up. I must have downloaded about 4 different voiceover apps, and they had Darth Vader. Everything. I'm going to blag him in. I'm going to record it and just play it. Dave, it was terrible. I thought, I'm not even. Some of them was like, you can get lost, no chance. Terrible. So I'll just stick to my authentic impressions, I think, next time.
No, that was good. That the old. You know what? As much as I love the Christopher Nolan trilogy, from Dark Knight onwards, that voice is just too much, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all. I mean, we've said this in the reviews, haven't we? Like I say, I've called it on our Dark Knight review. He's talking to Thingy Fox, isn't he? Free
Lucius.
Yeah. But there's no one else in the room. Lucius knows he's Batman. He's got Lucius. And he's like, but you're Bruce Wayne. There's no one with you. What are you doing that
But, this is my regular voice.
Yeah.
I've just been goggling marbles.
Maybe something as simple as putting a coat round a young boy. It's just like, yeah, okay, mate. I'm saving that for the Dark Knight Rises review day.
Right. Okay, well, after that frivolity, so what we also like to do is we also like to share with you some of the other great podcasts that are on the BritPodScene, which we're part of. And so we'll be right back with you after this short break.
Hello, it's Chris here from the Movie Bunker podcast. Just thought I'd interrupt your usual listening pleasure to tell you about our podcast, The Movie Bunker. Here's Matt, my co-host, speaking more eloquently about what we do.
What we do, Chris, is we chose, in this saturated podcast market of moviness, not to follow the herd and go and review excellent films or popular films. We've chosen to delve into the past and find poorly rated films that we review. We watch, obviously, that helps the reviewing procedure. Then we review them. But the purpose, the holy grail, the goal of this is to find film or films that have been poorly reviewed unfairly. That we've gone, listen people, don't look at this 2-star review. No. This is a 5-star piece of entertainment.
We'll do it. We'll find a film that we both enjoy, or we can have a wrestle about. So there you have it. That's the premise of our podcast. If you think that's something you might like, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcast from. And you can follow us on Twitter. We have a Facebook page, so get involved in the discussion. Let's talk about these critically panned stinkers together. Thanks for listening, and see you in the bunker.
Okay, Chris, so we are going to tackle today the previously unreleased Fantastic Four movie that was never intended to to see the light of day. So this was not the 2000s Fantastic Four movie, which has mixed reviews. This was 1994. So if I go into a little bit of comic background about the Fantastic Four, they actually debuted in their own title book back in 1961. And that's not that interesting, except they were really the first characters in what we now know as the Marvel Universe. Now, it's generally regarded that they were created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, though what actually happened in that build-up differs a little bit from both perspectives. So one account of things is that Martin Goodman, who owned, previously Timely and Atlas Comics, which were the precursors to what became Marvel, he looked at the success of Justice League of America and basically said, that book is outselling every other book, and it's a team book. So he's asked Stan Lee, come up with a team book. And, we'll do a team book, and it'll do really well. So from that, Stan came up with a synopsis. Jack Kirby drew the whole issue, and then Stan filled in the dialogue. And so we've spoken about the Marvel method in the past. That's pretty much what the Marvel method is. Stan would write out the synopsis. Artists would draw each panel and really make a lot of artistic choices about the story. And then Stan would come in and fill in the dialogue at the end. That's really that Marvel method there. But according to Jack Kirby's account, he pretty much did everything to create those characters, and Stan just added the dialogue in the end. And he did give him credit. He came up with the four on the four logo that appears on the Fantastic Four suits.
Yep.
Now, so it's debatable, and historians have tried to find out what the actual truth is, and not really come to a conclusion. Now, if you are on the Stan Lee side, you'll take the Stan account. If you are a Jack Kirby worshipper, you'll take the Jack Kirby account. I think the reality is both had a huge impact in creating what we now know as the Fantastic Four. Now, you can say, so both of them had an input to it. You could also say, well, Martin Goodman lit the fire to say, just create a team book. But the reality is they both created him. They both created them, whether it's 60-40, 80-20, one way or the other, we'll honestly never know. So Stan Lee had been the editor-in-chief at both Timely and Atlas Comics. He'd had to make loads of redundancies, and he was honestly quite jaded at the time. So at the time he wrote Fantastic Four, it was kind of like his swan song. He was thinking, well, you know what? I'm going to write a story. I'm going to write characters that I care about, and I'm going to read a book that I'd want to read, because this is pretty much the last thing I'm going to do. He wrote that, and it was a complete unprecedented, unexpected success. And they were getting fan mail through, and from issue 3 onwards, they started printing the fan mail in the issues, and it was just a runaway success. And from that, from the Fantastic Four, Stan and Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, that early Marvel went on to create Hulk, Spider-Man, Thor, and again, it exploded. And Marvel eventually, this being this cheeky little upstart to what DC Comics was at the time, became this huge thing to what we know in the world today. So I honestly cannot overstate how much of an impact both Stan Lee and Jack Kirby had in creating the comics world that we know today. Now, Chris, in terms of the movie background, I am really looking forward to this one.
Oh, my word. Well, I've got to say, Dave, I think, like you said, we were doing this podcast just by something we discussed. You mentioned this to me before. I had no knowledge of this film. And I think what you've just said is some great words for Stan Lee and obviously Jack Kirby as well. Let's hope they collab together up there in the sky, Dave? So it's a really good thing. And I think, like you say, everything's aligned. Anyway, back to the movie background. So basically, in 1983, German producer Bernd Eichinger, he met with Marvel Comics, Stan Lee at Lee's home. He wanted movie rights for the Fantastic Four. Now, they had the option for like 3 years to take them. And Eichinger's company, Neue Constantin, attained it for the price of like $250,000 at the time, which wasn't a lot. And they were hoping to get like a big budget for it, and some of the big film companies to come on, like Warner Brothers, Columbia Pictures, they'd shown a bit of an interest, but it never actually really took off. The option for him to take it was running out on like December the 31st, 1992, so he had to get something made. And he'd asked Marvel for an extension, which they were having none of it. But he wanted the option to retain the Fantastic Four rights, and the only way to do this was to make a film. So he had to make a film in such a short window, and he had to start making it before the end of 1992. So on December the 28th, 1992, he started production of it. Now, the film was only made over 25 days, which is an unbelievable stress ball of a film, and with a small budget of $1 million. And he ended up approaching the B-movie specialist Roger Corman to produce it. So to put that into perspective, Dave, 25 days usually on a film now is not even when they're at the planning or storyboard stage.
Yeah.
So to produce it then, obviously we're talking 26 years ago, is quite a feat, to be fair. And Roger Corman's films are synonymous. Like, I think at the time, Jurassic Park was out with Steven Spielberg, one of the biggest budget films of its time, and then he brought one out called Carnosaurus, I think it was, which was his version of Jurassic Park. Carnosaurus, yeah, Carnosaurus, something like that. It was just like, and I've seen it as well, and it's literally a guy in a Tyrannosaurus Rex suit, but that's what you get on the tin, Dave. He was a specialist in that, and they were quite a big company as well, to be fair. Now, with this, there's a lot of stuff that I've read. Now, you obviously always do a bit of recommended reading on the comics. I never suggest anything, and this is something, to be fair, you get full credit for, Dave, is you asked me to watch, it's on Amazon Prime, or if you can find it online, go have a look, a documentary called Doom, The Untold Story of Roger Corman's The Fantastic Four. Now, that was released in 2015, and what I would say is I watched this after I'd watched the film. Now, it doesn't really matter. I would say watch the film first, then watch this, because I actually found this better than the film, not to reveal my hand, but it brings a massive perspective into what actually happened with this production and the way that the actors and actresses, the directors, the producers, they were all lied to, basically, by what was going to go on. This film, allegedly, by the powers that be, was never going to be released. It was just a way of them flexing the actual rights to the film so it could carry on. And there was, to be fair, God rest his soul. I know, obviously, we've been quite rightly singing Stan Lee's praises, but there's a bit of controversy with Stan Lee on this, where he actually threw the film under the bus. There's actually a clip of him doing it at Comic-Con around about 93, sorry. And mainly because that he didn't think it was going to come out. And there's a bit of a segment in this documentary where he says it was never to see the light of day. And as far as the people who made the film and the actors and actresses, it was going to see light of day. So if you can, please go and watch that, because I found it absolutely amazing this afternoon. I watched it, Dave, and I can't recommend it enough. It's just such an interesting, if you're into this sort of thing like we are, what an interesting perspective, and it gives you a bit of a background noise. And I actually think as well, I said this to you, Dave, I come away feeling sorry for the guys, actually.
Yeah.
You really do. And you've seen it. What do you think of that, Dave? I've got a couple of other things to mention on that. But what did you think?
I thought it was a fascinating watch. I mean, I've watched it a couple of times, and again, you just think, you put it. These are human beings at the end of the day, and so when we go through our review, we will, call out things that need to be called out. But ultimately, these were a bunch of up and comers, or they felt they were up and comers. And they felt that this was going to be their big break. And the guys, the producers, absolutely didn't care. It was just a case of, let's tick the boxes,
Let's show that we're trying to make a movie to keep hold of the rights for a bit longer, and then we know we're going to sell it for a lot more later on. And the trouble was, everyone on the project, you can see that they were so passionate about the project. You know, and in the interviews, they're like, you know, the voices are muffled and, you know, but that's only until they fix it. Guys, they're not going to fix it.
Yeah.
You know, and so I sort of laughed there that, you know, they are slightly deluded with it. But you sort of put it into the perspective of your own life and your own aspirations and dreams, and you just think, oh, these guys got absolutely steamrolled.
Yeah, you're totally right, Dave. I mean, as a thing as well, obviously, I always go into the critical response to this because it's never seen the light of day, so there is no financial gain to it whatsoever. It was $1 million project, and it was $1 million down the drain pretty much. And for the guys who were in the film and they didn't really make anything on it other than it being on your CV. Now, across 8 reviews, because it's like I say, it's something now that if you get a chance, and we will put this in the programme notes, it is available on YouTube and on Dailymotion as well, the actual film. Please watch it if you're interested, because it's just sensational for a whole plethora of reasons, which we'll get into. But it's actually not that badly reviewed by the critics, Dave, which I find totally bizarre. It's at 38% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, bear in mind that Howard the Duck was at 15, and some of the other films that reviewed are at a lot less that I've actually enjoyed. I'm really shocked by that. Now, in November 2008, it was listed in the top 50 comic movies of all time, and some are so bad you've just got to see them category. It's even reviewed higher than Batman and Robin, Steel, Virus, and Red Sonja, and they were all big theatre releases that had poor reviews.
That is interesting.
I find that really bizarre. And also, one of the notable actors that stood out by the reviewers is Michael Bailey Smith, who plays Ben Grimm. Now, we'll get into that, Dave, because we've talked about it privately, but he actually gets a lot of kudos for this film, which I find utterly unbelievable. But yeah, that's all I've got, really. It's an absolutely amazing story around it. And the documentary is fantastic. I'd probably say watch the film and then watch the documentary, because I'll be honest with you, Dave, and I'm not revealing my hand too soon, I am going to feel sorry for the score I'm probably going to say at the end. But after watching all these guys, blood, sweat and tears for absolutely nothing, it was just unbelievable.
Well, we'll see. I mean, we'll talk through it. I am a bit more on the fence than you are, probably, and probably influenced by the documentary.
Yeah.
And I think the reviewers are probably grading on a scale, aren't they? You know, so I sent Man of Steel to the Phantom Zone, which, you know, in terms of the budget to what the end product was, I felt personally that was justified.
Yeah.
This film cost $1 million. We were talking about Deadpool being created on a shoestring budget of $50 million. And what a great job they did with that. And, you know, this is 1994. So obviously you got to bake inflation into that as well. But it is a really interesting case study. And so I guess this is probably one for the real hardcore comic book movie fans. So if you are a hardcore comic book movie fan, if you've got any kind of academic interest, go and watch the movie, go and watch the documentary, because the documentary was made, and I still don't think anyone was ever expecting it to be released at the time the documentary was made. This film has been released within the last week.
Yeah.
And I said to you in our show last week, I never thought this would see the light of day, actually. And I don't quite know what's happened to make that happen. But it has. And so let's worship this thing.
It's quite appropriate, that really, isn't it?
It is. Okay. So,
Dave.
Yeah. Okay, so straight away we open up and we're introduced to Reed Richards and his mate, Victor Von Doom.
and they're college friends, and they're basically using the opportunity of a passing comet to try and make an experiment, try out an experiment. And you can see that they're both kind of, they're quite chummy, but I guess Victor is more the dominant out of that friendship, isn't he? So you can see that, Victor just wants to proceed ahead. There's no time to make any kind of theoretical simulations. And Reed Richards kind of like, well, we should really check out this bit a little bit more. And he's like, no, Victor Von Doom's like, no, there's no time. In a very, very over the top Shakespearean way. And I guess, opening impressions of the movie. So obviously we're watching this in 2018, and you kind of realize that you're watching something in a time capsule that is very, very old. So I'm interested, Chris, in this first opening scene, kind of what are your thoughts at this point?
Well, I was thinking of you actually, Dave, and I was thinking, how has he outdone himself? Literally, I was thinking, how have you outdone me with Howard the Duck within the first 5 minutes? I am thinking, what in the holy hell is this? Because it had everything within the first sort of 10 minutes we had. Now, bear in mind, we've gone through some bad films, and I'm not saying it at the start, Dave, but I'm going to say my line later. But we've had Nick Fury. We've had, Generation X, which I didn't think could get any worse. Then we've gone to Howard the Duck. And, even Swarm, which we were talking about, that wasn't even as bad, for me anyway, as that. But it was like watching a bit of Batman. There's a bit of opera there. I was waiting for Meatloaf to come out because of the way the operatic. It was almost like a musical. Like when they're talking, it's almost like they're sort of going with the music, like it's like a rhyme or something. I was absolutely blown away. I mean, I literally had to rewind this start twice. I was like, what has Dave done to me here? Because it was just an abomination. It was just. I actually thought it was a joke. I was thinking, this has just got to be a wind. It really has got to be a wind. I mean, you've got stuff going on around, and you've got this creepy looks. And like I say, Dave, I've got to hold my hands up. Having knowing this after I've watched it, it was on a budget of $1 million. Hats off to him for producing something along the lines of the Fantastic Four. But oh my word, was I looking at the clock, Dave? This is not like 20 minutes in. I'm literally probably 5 minutes in. I'm thinking, what have you done to me, Horrocks here? What have you done? It's unbelievable. To say B movie, Dave, I don't even think there's a letter in the alphabet. That's how low down it was. It's well past Z.
We need a new alphabet. So, what's only just occurred to me really is that, a lot of our podcast is about that duality of our different perspectives. I watched Doomed, and I knew of this movie before. And so I've only seen this movie in this last week. Whereas you watched the movie first, and then you've watched the documentary and learned about some of the history. So again, that's probably more unintentional than a planned thing.
Yeah.
But just as you were talking then, I just thought, I wonder if that influences our perspectives as well. Because don't get me wrong, I'm watching this and I'm thinking, this is terrible. But you know what? When I watched the opening to Kickboxer with Jean-Claude Van Damme, also think that's terrible. But it's not quite held in the same esteem as this one. But no.
Yeah,
I just thought
I get you. It's a very good
call that out.
No, I agree with that because I'm a massive martial arts fan as well. Van Damme, Bruce Lee, No Surrender films, some proper dodgy. I've said to you before on the podcast, there was a dodgy karate film. I was all over it as a kid. But I'd overlook that because it was something I was interested in. I think that's a very good point. And don't get me wrong, it has changed my perspective after watching the documentary today. I watched the film yesterday, and I swear to you, I was coming on here all guns blazing for this film. I was like, right, you are getting it today, Dave, because I just thought this is terrible. But I do agree. The documentary, paints. It's actually more paints the world of Hollywood and the lies and dreams and how these films there on the cutting room floor that are never going to see the light of day, and they're people's, you know, blood, sweat and tears and hard toil, you know, spending hours a day. And that's what you get watching the documentary. So you are correct. I am aware of what I'm saying, but obviously reviewing the film, it's an absolute disgrace.
Well, again, you know, you mentioned about the music. I was a little bit surprised. I thought, again, when you consider the budget, and this is where I think maybe knowing the background before I watched the movie had an influence on my expectations and what I thought when I was watching the movie. So, again, knowing that it's almost a zero budget movie, I was watching that. I was thinking, you know what, that music sounds pretty good.
It did. It sounds a bit like Jurassic Park. And to be fair, the two musical directors in post production, David and Eric Wirtz, they financed $6,000 of their own money for a 48-piece orchestra. So that's why you get these very theatrical. That's what I'm saying. It feels like a Meatloaf video from the late 70s, 80s. It's very theatrical, you know, I'll do anything for love. There's all sorts going on here. Bit of a Queen type feel and a Jurassic Park feel. And like I said to you laughing, this film, and it's one of the YouTube comments I picked up on the copy we watched, was it's like watching porn, but without the porn. And it's just... It's so badly, you know, like allegedly, if you've ever watched that sort of thing, I'm not saying I have, Dave, but, you know, someone knocks on the door and goes, "Hi, can I take a light bulb off you?" Next minute, you know, he's having a bit of fun or whatever.
I'll take your word for it, Chris.
Yeah, just allegedly, Dave, allegedly. This is sort of stuff I believe you can see. But, you know, it's that sort of acting and script at this point. It's not... it's trying to be sort of a Fantastic Four, and fair play to the actors.
You're making my mind wonder with some of the potential Reed Richards stretchy arm effects there. But anyway, sorry, go on.
Mr. Tickle out the Mr. Men.
Mr. Tickler.
But yeah, it really is. It's almost porn level of acting, Dave. It's just like, just get on with it. It's just, it's pointless even trying to give us a backstory because, you know what I mean? That's how I felt about it. I'll be honest with you, Dave.
Well, I guess, you know, they are trying to give us some story, aren't they? So these clear college buddies, you know, Reed and Victor, you know, they do this experiment again. Victor's clearly a bit gung-ho. They perform this experiment. We have this weird kind of effect where he's struck by lightning. And then what I don't understand is, how did Dave Grohl, lead singer of the Foo Fighters, former drummer of Nirvana, time travel back to 1994 to place himself in this movie?
He's the guy with the goatee, the one who's got the terrible accent.
He has got a terrible accent. Absolute dead ringer. I am looking at this and I'm doing a double take and I'm like, that is Dave Grohl.
Yeah. And you can clearly tell it's someone like me. And they've said, right, can you do a foreign accent? He's like, "Hello there, how are you?" It's just like, it's absolutely, I mean, that's probably better than him, Dave. It's absolutely terrible. Because I actually thought he was American at first. And then later on, I was like, what is this accent? Is he putting this on? He was sat in a car at some point. I'm like, what is going on here? And again, you're right. We get this, Dave, I've got to call this out now. I'm sorry. But the experiment goes horribly wrong. We get, you know, he's injured and stuff like that. And then Sue and Johnny Storm live with their mother, and Ben decides to knock on the door with Reed, doesn't he? And
this is, I think this is the best bit of acting ever.
We get a knock on the door. We get this violin sort of musical music. We're talking proper like love story music, and he knocks on it and he does this. The guy who plays Ben Grimm, who apparently got the plaudits, Michael Bailey Smith, he goes, "Hi, can I take them up to space?" or something like that. And that's how he acted it. I'm not lying to you. Now, bear in mind, this guy's 6'5". He crouches down, then picks up the old granny who's about 60. She jumps into his arms like brief encounter job, lifts her off the edge. She spins with her knees bent like the old classic swoon, puts her down. And I'm like, what is going on here? This is definitely, there's some sort of gilf porn going on here we don't know about. This is definitely going down the rabbit hole that I've never seen on Pornhub, Dave. I'm thinking this is not good at all. And then we get reading that.
Sorry, before we go to and then, I've just got to say that is the funniest bit of the film for me.
Yes.
Just the joy on his face. And I don't know, did this guy act before or after? I'm not sure, but I imagine, right, if someone just if I walked out of the door now and someone just shoved a camera in my face and said, act this, I imagine that's how I'd do it. You know, it'd just be like, hi, Mrs. Storm. Can Johnny and Sue come up to space with me?
That's actually better than what I did. It's absolutely terrible, isn't it? It's like, but they've got that sort of the old Vaseline glaze on the screen, haven't they? You know, like the old John Collins job out of that Dynasty to hide the fact that she was about 75 and it makes her look about 30. And it's all shiny and sickly and it's not the way, whatever the direction was, it's just absolutely atrocious. It really is. It's just, I mean, honestly, I've genuinely, and I mean that sincerely, I have never seen anything like it. I honestly didn't know what to think, Dave. I was thinking this is like some dodgy daytime soap acting, which, to be fair, that's what the critics said. It was like soap acting, but badly. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess speaking of unbelievable, so it's an interesting choice, isn't it? So you've got initially. So Reed lives with, Johnny and Sue. And Sue is a young, what would you say, 12-year-old girl?
And that's actually given her years, I think, Dave, but you are correct, yeah?
Yeah, so let's say 10 to 12. And, she's got a bit of a teacher crush kind of thing on Reed. And so, okay, that's fair enough. That's an interesting writing choice. But when it comes to it, that we fast forward a few years, don't we?
Yeah.
And then Reed is going to go up into space, and then he turns up, and basically, Johnny's grown up a bit, Sue's grown up a bit. Johnny's like, can we come with you into space? And Reed's like, no, I don't think this is going to work, kind of thing. And then Sue comes down the stairs looking rather lovely, I have to say. And Reed, who's known her from a 10 to 12-year-old girl, looks up at her. And then I don't know what his dialogue was, but he's basically like,
It's got a light bulb.
Yeah. It's like, all right then, come on, let's go.
Yeah.
We're going. And it's like, now, we have mentioned Operation U-Tree a few times on this podcast, but honestly, if he'd have looked up the stairs and gone, now then, haven't we blossomed, Sue? I think we'll, let's come up to the spaceship, shall we? So
Jim fixed it.
This is just Jim will fix it for you. This is wrong. Why? They didn't need to have that few seconds where they were kids, but ultimately they were kids. And then Reed, knowing her as a kid, has come back. She's grown up, she's blossomed, and now he's like clearly, got romantic eyes for her. I mean, this was just wrong, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, I'm with you on it. It was proper creepy. And the fact that Reed and Ben don't even age in 10 years is even more bizarre. But you're right. You're so right, Dave. It was the most uneasy, creepiest thing I think I've seen. I genuinely make your skin crawl. And like we say, we're laughing about Operation U-Tree. It's a serious thing that, it's something that everybody says, don't they? Like, about people, as like you've seen it all the time. Bloody comedians are doing it all the time with this sort of stuff. But it's a serious thing. But even for 1994, that tone was not correct. I mean, we've called out a couple of things on the podcast where you're thinking now, like, oh, that is really close to the bone. But Yeah, that is quite uneasy, Dave. And then you've got that horrible. Well, you like I say you don't mind the music, but that operatic love sort of music going on and I'm just like, no, I'm not. I wasn't buying it at all. I mean, it's atrocious anyway, what I've seen so far. So I mean, it sort of goes with the tone of the film, I think. Very good.
Yeah. But like you say, it is absolutely a serious thing, but it's just the way that it's shot in the film that kind of makes it look all okay. So that's the weird thing about it. But they do end up going up into space, don't they? Again, as with the comics, and they are hit by the cosmic rays, and they have pretty much the worst spacesuits you've ever seen in your life. You know, it might as well have just wrapped tin foil around themselves. But actually, when they do crash, I mean, you don't see the powers manifest themselves straight away, do you? No. And actually, I thought that was okay as a storytelling device. I didn't think that was too bad, you know. And they give us a little bit of misdirection because, you know, Ben, when Reed's looking for Ben, he's covered, and you're kind of thinking, well, when he moves that metal sheet back, you know, are we going to see the Thing? And it's like, oh no, it's the same guy that we saw before. So it sort of stretches it out a bit. And then I think Johnny is the first, isn't he, that we see to show his powers. And again, knowing what the budget is, they did it okay, but the acting was pretty awful, wasn't it? It's like, oh my God, I've just created fire, you know. Just woeful.
Oh my God, Johnny. Yeah, it's just like that's how it was acted though as well, and unbelievable. Reed obviously dedicates the whole mission, doesn't he, to Victor, because it's his good friend he believes died years ago, doesn't he? So that's like the whole premise of this. But yeah, I mean, I don't even know what to say. I mean, you go in for, bear in mind, say 1981, we've reviewed our second one, Superman 2, and that that moon scene is a bit questionable with General Zod in it and Norman and Ursa. But it's a black background. It's supposed to be the moon in it, and they're getting the spaceship. Now, fast forward 13 years, a lot less budget, obviously, than this film, but it never looked like they were on another planet, Dave, did it? Let's be honest. It just looked like they're in the back lot somewhere in some cupboard or something with a bit of light in it. It was pretty terrible. But then,
I did think, when I was watching it, and I was thinking, what better superpower for a low-budget movie than the Invisible Woman? You know, when she's like, Reed, I'm right here. And everyone was like, where are you? And I was like, oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah. Didn't have to pay her as much as everyone else.
Yeah, just the camera moves around a bit, and, you know, fantastic. No pun intended. But obviously, one by one, you know, their powers start to show themselves. And again, I do love the Mr. Fantastic attempted special effects. When he sort of stretches his arm a bit, it's like, oh my God.
He grabbed the head, doesn't he? He
terrible.
grabbed her head. She falls back, doesn't he? And
that's
then the
right,
arm comes out.
Comes out to catch her.
Yeah, but he grabs the head like when you see someone grabbing a woman to pull her in to kiss her. He grabs her right in, doesn't he? It's the most awkward pull I've ever seen. It was terrible. You know, it was really bad. But again, Dave, I'm sorry, I've got to call him out. The Thing. I'm not saying that it looked like what they did with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from like 1990, 91. The suit, very clever, very close to the comic book, right?
Yep.
No problem. I swear to you, I've got no problem with that. I actually respect that. I actually think it's quite a good reincarnation. And the fact that with the low budget, they could make the actual prosthetic face with expressions. I thought that was real. And that's something that I only know this as well because of Doom, we watched the documentary, but hats off to him. But, and there's a big but, there's two things with this suit. One, obviously this film was never going to see the light of day because, one, you can clearly hear that he's got a suit on when he's talking because of the sound, because you can hear that like, yes, sir, I'm the Thing. You know, you can hear like as if he's got his hand over his mouth.
Yeah.
And two, you can clearly see his eyes under the suit. They've just put a bit of black eyeliner around his eyes to sort of protect him. But fantastic. I've got to say, very, very close to the 1960s comics or whatever it is, 1950s, wherever they come out. Very, very close to the thing. So for that, I've got to praise them. But what they had underneath with the voice and that is just
see, I had a different problem with the thing. So I thought, like you, I thought the facial expressions they got, and especially knowing what the budget was, hats off to you. You've done a great job, I think. With that budget, I think it looks great. It's the fact that the thing is smaller than Ben Grimm.
Yeah, and that's called out as well, isn't it? Yeah,
it's like the guy who plays Ben Grimm is. I mean, he's really in shape, isn't he? You know,
yeah.
he's a good. You know, he's been hitting the gym, and then he turns into Ben Grimm, and he sort of shrinks.
Yeah, he does. Well, he said that he's 6'5", isn't he? The Michael Bailey Smith who plays Ben Grimm, and the guy who plays the Thing, he's about 5'10". 5'9", so I agree. And then it's a bit later in the web when he comes back to being Ben, doesn't he? And it's just awful. But I agree with you. I agree because he's walking around and he looks like a bodybuilder, doesn't he? I know the thing is supposed to be like that, but he's supposed to be comparable to the Hulk, isn't he? And the actresses actually comment on that, saying it would have been more in tone with the comics if Ben Grimm, if the Thing had been 6'5", he'd have been huge, like the Hulk sort of thing. It was really
If they built the suit for him, it would have looked better.
Yes.
But they clearly built it for a smaller guy, and like I say, when you've got Ben Grimm towering over Reed Richards, and then you've got the Thing, and he's about the same height. It's like, what's going on there? I mean, even if I don't know, even if you don't ever think it's going to see the light of day, but the director and everyone did, for me, that's a little bit of a schoolboy error, that one.
Yeah, and to be fair, the scenes with the Thing where he's supposed to be this like stone-like creature and some of the fighting stuff, it's out of 1966 Batman camp. It's camp.
So actually, you know what, Chris, I've got to run back a little bit just while we're focusing in on the Thing, because when he's Ben Grimm, he meets his girlfriend. So again, another big character from the comics. So Alicia Masters. So she is blind. So that's a bit of a thing. She is blind, and she's got a thing for Ben Grimm, and he turns into a monster. Kind of hates himself and whatever. But when he meets her, he crushes her pottery or whatever it is she's carrying, and then he just picks her up like above his head. And then she's like, "What? What the F?" kind of thing is what I'd be saying. But then he puts her down, and she's like, "Oh, it's okay. I consented." And I was just watching it again, thinking, "What the hell did I just say again? What in 1994? Right? It wasn't 1884. I don't understand what planet that was okay."
Yeah,
it was just all very weird. But I'd completely forgotten about that. But as we were talking about Ben, I thought we'd go back there. But anyway,
good.
Yeah, so it all gets a bit confusing with old Victor Von Doom, though, doesn't it? So when they're away, when they've discovered their powers, they're actually captured by Victor's men who are posing as Marines. And so they meet Doctor Doom for the first time, but they end up escaping, and they regroup at the Baxter Buildings where their base is, and they try and decide, what are they going to do now that they've got superpowers? And old Ben Grimm, he's a bit upset because everyone else has got these cool powers, but they all kind of look like themselves. But he's a big rock monster.
So he's feeling a bit hard done by. So he ends up leaving the team, doesn't he?
Yeah, and I mean, it didn't have the impacts. I think it was supposed to. It's like one of the old redemption in a film, isn't it? He's lost his way, and then he comes back to save the day. It wasn't exactly the Justice League, was it? Superman, killed, and they're trying to make him reborn. Because the thing is, as well, Dave. I mean, I've called out the Thing, and it's not his fault. But Joseph Cole, who plays Doctor Doom, he mentions this, that he's, even to this day, he's absolutely fuming with the fact that they thought they were going to have to come back in and redo all their lines. A bit like what I said, and he might have done if they were going to release it, like what we said about Howard the Duck, where they had to have the costume design guy next to them reading the lines out to the actors because they couldn't understand the guy who was playing Howard because of the suit he had on. He was saying the lines, but they couldn't, so they had to have someone cue everything they did so they could act alongside it. And it's terrible because Doctor Doom, like I know reading online and that people have said it's the best version of Doctor Doom they'd seen on the screen. I know there's not been a lot of them, but he was one of the best ones, and they got his suit and everything, to be fair, off to a T. But you can clearly see he's got a mask on because his voice is even more muffled than the Thing. And for me, it was just putting more crosses against this. I think the only thing plus I've got at the moment is the Thing suit. Other than that, it's just a joke, and it's not his fault, and he says that. But he still goes to Comic Cons, and people know who he is, Dave. So he's got that cult following, considering the film's never been really released anywhere. It's such.
Gonna say something controversial here, right? Best Doctor Doom I've seen in the movie. He is, right? No, forget the voice. Forget the, forget all of that. But especially the last Fantastic Four we had was absolutely an abomination that had a massive, massive budget behind it. But for me, in terms of how he looked, yeah, it's better than the other Doctor Dooms that we've seen.
That's fair enough. I've not seen the latest Fantastic Four, Dave, so I can't even compare or not argue, but, challenge on that, because I honestly don't know. And by the sounds of it, I'm quite glad I don't.
Well, I'll send you a still, from it. Certainly the look is all wrong in the latest one.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, just in terms of how it looked, I thought they did an okay job. Again, everything is with that context of, it was unbelievably low budget. I mean, they couldn't have made a lower budget, could they? Really? No.
But, I agree. And you've got to take it for what it is, Dave. I'm trying. I'm really, really trying, but you've got to take it for what it is. And that's a great call. And that's something I've seen online with him, the Doctor Doom. So, you know better than me with these sort of things. I've only ever seen him in Spider-Man films, cartoons, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's good. And then, obviously, Ben does a runner. He's now downtrodden. He does this weird thing where he's walking through the streets. Nobody seems to be bothered. The fact that they've got this stone-like person walking around the streets. And then he creeps up on two women, doesn't he? And we just get this really weird, bizarre shot, which we find out on the documentary was filmed on like the back lot with the two actresses of the set. And some homeless man takes him in, doesn't he? And sort of challenges him, and he grows and
the jeweler.
Yeah, well, the jeweler. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I honestly don't know what to say. He's very much supposed to be like he's going to redeem himself and come and save the day, but I wasn't getting that feeling. I was just getting a feeling of we're about 50 minutes in. Please end this hell.
Well, he ends up getting taken in by, the jeweler, and his cronies, basically a bunch of hobos, aren't they? But we find out, so Victor needs this diamond that Reed had, and he needs that to capture the comet's powers. The jeweler would then give the real diamond to the blind artist Alicia Masters. Now Alicia Masters, what they were doing with her was a real kind of Batman 66 thing, wasn't it? The way they were dressing her up and stuff.
he was kind of worshipping her as this kind of Egyptian goddess kind of thing, wasn't he?
Yeah, even when they captured her, though, that was almost like you say, it wasn't an Operation U-Tree job. It was really strange. She said, the actress, though, the lady who plays her, she'd actually said that she'd come from the stage. She was from like Broadway and that. She'd never done anything like this, Dave. Kat Green, her name is. I mean, she's a very pretty lady, actually. And even now, she's really pretty.
Yeah, you can see from the documentary, can't you?
Yeah, she's really pretty, girl. But she said, like, she felt out of place with these guys. How in God's hell she felt out of place, I do not know. But she did. And she probably puts in a bit more of a performance than anyone else in the film, to be honest. I think that fact that she'd never done this sort of thing before was great, because the guy who plays Johnny, he was actually out of Uncle Buck and that. He had a filmography. There's a couple of films he'd done. He wasn't just a nobody. The guy who played Ben,
his hair wasn't blonde though, was it? I mean, he's got a weird kind of ginger thing going on there with Johnny Storm's hair. But
yeah, Johnny Storm's hair. And the Ben Grimm guy was he'd been in Freddy Krueger 5 as Super Freddy. And there's a couple of sort of B-movie stuff, but there was no one to know. But they'd obviously been in a lot of films. They knew that, the reading, the calls, when to go, when not to go, how everyone was, and she didn't. But she put in a more honest performance, I thought, than everyone else. Everyone else seemed to ham it up. She actually tried to act, to be fair.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. But I mean, you get Doom and kind of the jeweler, and they all have a bit of a set to, don't they? Trying to get this diamond, and that's when Ben, comes in. He has his potential redemption moment, but then he has a bit of stage fright, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Just when he needs to be at his most powerful, I'm going to say in inverted commas, shrinks back to his human form, but actually beefs out to become Ben Grimm. And he's like, oh no, I've lost my powers, and then just runs off.
Yeah, because I mean, it's unbelievable that, you got the Incredible Hulk and, Dr. Banner is like a 5'8", 5'9", just a normal geeky doctor. And he grows to like a 7-foot behemoth, but Ben Grimm actually goes bigger into a 6'5" bloke from a 5'8", piece of rock. So yeah, like you say, forget the budget, forget everything. That is a total miscast. I mean, really, what they should have done was had the little guy as Ben Grimm, and then he changes into that other guy, Michael Bailey Smith, and he should have just been the Thing if that was the case. That would have been more convincing.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway. But yes, you are correct, Dave. He does a runner, gives a bit of a push to... what makes me laugh is there's a proper terrible bit of dialogue, because Ben Grimm goes back to himself, shrinks down to shrink back up again, and pushes one of the guards. One of them shoots at him. Now, Dr. Doom's just seen this Thing as the Thing has just escaped. And he goes, leave him. It's like, well, surely he's going to be a threat to you. You can't kill him. And he just says, leave, in this real weird, like, sort of theatre voice. I was just like, it was just...
Oh, yeah. So it's all, everything that Dr. Doom says is very Shakespearean, isn't it? And even on the documentary, the actor, you can tell he takes himself pretty seriously, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does, to be fair. And I think it's something, I don't know if it's because of his career, but I think he actually thought this was going to be the platform he needed, because usually the bad guys get more, don't they? They get more of a opportunity to further their careers in these sort of things. And it's not his fault. He seemed like quite a good bloke, to be fair. I mean, I'm dubious over that hair dye 26 years later when he was talking. But other than that...
Jet black hair.
Yeah, he must be nearly 60. But again, they all seem like genuine people. The one thing people did say was he went in full character because he wouldn't mix with the other crew members, would he? They said he would always be off on his own, isolating himself to play that guy. So, respect to him for that, Dave, I've got to say.
Wasn't there the same story with Jared Leto as well, playing the Joker in Suicide Squad? That kind of method acting, and they just have to get themselves into the zone. And again, fair play to him. There was nothing left I don't think. You know, when you see the documentary, there was nothing left from them. They absolutely gave it their all.
Yeah, they did, and I've given 100%, Dave, for effort. You can't knock the people. You really can't. And it almost becomes like in a short space of time. They had a connection for life, to be fair. And you know, to be able to say that about such a cinematic, I don't know, legendary B movies.
Turd.
Well, yeah. I'm trying to be nice, but yeah, you're right. It's absolutely something that's stepped in on the local park. But no, and what I get is, though, Dave, is the Fantastic Four then go to get, Doom, Doctor Doom and that. And there's a section there, if anybody, please, if you can still enjoy this film, where Ben Grimm takes out 3 of his cronies. They're playing like poker or something. Yeah. And you don't see it. All you see is the old Batman spinning screen. So they spin the camera and just spin like the shot. And then these 3 guys there pretending to be knocked out who were doing the worst bit of acting you've ever seen. And he's just like, oh, is that an ace or whatever he says to him or whatever he's saying. And it's like, at least show me something. At least show him chinning him or throwing him about. And because of the budget and the fact that they had no special effects, it's just purely soap opera job, isn't it? It's almost cartoon-like the way, but not in a good way. It's like a U-type cartoon where they're not allowed to show any violence because of the age bracket. It was just awful.
It was. But anyway, I mean, after Ben had suffered a bit of stage fright, he sort of runs out, doesn't he? And I don't know whether off camera he pops a blue pill or something, but he somehow just screams a bit and ends up turning back into the Thing and, shrinking back into the Thing. And then, he's ready for action again.
Yeah.
So what they have is, so Doom and the jeweler, they're both fighting over this diamond. Doom ends up taking the diamond to power a laser cannon that's going to destroy New York. And, Ben comes back and he's got his friends. So Reed's learn that basically Doom is actually Victor. So it's like, ta-da! This guy we thought, his college friend who he thought was dead is actually this maniacal Victor Von Doom. What are the chances? I knew you as Victor, but anyway. So they basically come to that realization they're the only ones that can stop Doom. So they get their costumes. And old Sue Storm, she's been busy at the knitting table and she's made these quite terrible Fantastic Four movie. Fantastic Four costumes, which are all a little bit different, and they do genuinely look homemade. But then they go off to battle Von Doom at the end there, don't they?
Yeah, and it's not a memorable end fight, is it really, Dave? I mean,
It kind of reminded me a little bit of Generation X in that the end fight, the crescendo, is just a bit of a damp squib, isn't it?
Yeah, it is very much all filmed within a couple of different sets in it. It's really at the end of the budget was nigh, I think, with this end bit because they get the better of Doctor Doom. He's on the ledge and stuff, and supposedly commits suicide, doesn't he? Over the side and falls into the fog. But we see his glove move on the balcony, don't we? And then Johnny becomes Human Torch. We
get some interesting special effects there, don't we?
Yeah.
Again, just from the documentary Doomed, I can't remember what is it they said. Something like, this guy had worked on Independence Day, so they brought him in, but it was very clear he didn't have a clue. And he was showing stuff and they were like, that's terrible, it's unacceptable, you've got to go back and try again.
Yeah, it was just, I don't know, it was just and I'm going to say it, Dave, this is quite literally the worst film I have ever seen. Now, we have skated over this quite quickly than what we usually do, and we usually have a few more laughs, but I am telling you, anybody who's listening, you've got to watch it, because if we ruin any more of this, like, we laugh about certain things in some of the reviews we do, but oh my God, is this bad. It is truly a disgrace. It really is. It's a disgrace.
It's so bad. It's so bad. And again, having known the history and having thirsted for watching this for so long, kind of enjoyed it. But we get to the end there. There's this damn squib of an ending. Ben frees Alicia, and then she's blind and she feels that he's all kind of rocky, but she doesn't care. She still loves Ben anyway. And I think didn't she say? I think she says she loves him. It's like, well, all right, calm down, love. Literally only just met him, but anyway, and then there's the marriage, isn't there?
Oh, I mean, you sent me this. You actually, you remember, you sent me this clip of the marriage bit. Remember a few months ago when you went, you've got to find a copy of this, or we've got to get it somewhere. And I thought it was a joke. And, they burst out of the church, don't they? So we've got Reed, Sue, and we've got Johnny, haven't we? Obviously must be his best man, in full Fantastic Four outfits, in bright blue and white, with a fake crowd there cheering them on. And honestly, it is pretty much porn acting at this point, Dave. All we were waiting for was there has to be some enjoyment out of this film, and by God, is there nothing, Dave? You know what I mean?
Oh, come on. So when Reed opens up the car.
Careful now, Dave. Careful.
No, when he opens up the roof and he starts waving, and it's just clearly like a fake arm, a fake rubbery arm, just on a piece of string. Someone's just shaking it. It's just the best thing ever.
I'll be honest with you, Dave. I actually was lay on the floor with my head in my hands, like, what has he done to me here? You'd absolutely took me on this journey of just breaking me down. It just broke me.
As much as I'm enjoying it at this point, and all the way through, and I'll keep my powder dry for the review, but I mean, it is in that territory of so bad it's good, and just that end scene, I just thought it was brilliant. And I did say last week, so we first became aware that this had dropped online just before we were recording last week, and I said, it might be one of those. It's just so bad it's good. And I think it's so bad it's something.
Dave, I'm sorry, but I don't know what dimension you're living in, but it's not so bad it's good. It's just bad. I think, Dave, it's a great little ending, that. But let's get into the review score, Dave. I think
let's do it.
Right now, Dave, I think it's only right. You've done me up like a kipper here with this one. I'm quite happy for you to go first tonight on this one.
Do you think so?
I'm really interested to see what you say, to be fair.
I think I might surprise you. Although, no, I've tipped my hat a little bit, haven't I, through this. So, again, if I look at some of the other movies, so quick recap on what our scoring system is. So we start off right at the top. The absolute best is Asgard. Then we go down to Atlantis, through Hall of Justice, into Hell's Kitchen, and then we send stuff to the Phantom Zone. Now, we haven't got a formal kind of sliding scale, but I kind of feel like it should be a sliding scale. So ultimately, it's just about, this scale is just, how does the movie make me feel? That's it. And I can't disassociate the end product from the budget. This was made for $1 million. And I'm probably influenced by the documentary and by the obvious passion that everyone who worked on that project, who wasn't in on the secret that it was never going to be shown, they all put their absolute utmost into it. Now, this is a terrible movie, so if you are watching this to be entertained, don't watch it, right? But if you are an absolute comic book nerd like me, and also you've got a slightly warped sense of humor and kind of warped sense of enjoyment, so maybe like me, you like things like Nick Hasselhoff's Nick Fury, and just Nick Hasselhoff. Did I say
Hasselhoff,
David Hasselhoff?
You better not.
Actually, I might have just created a new persona for our Comics in Motion universe.
Yeah, Nick Hasselhoff.
Nick Hasselhoff.
That's a new one.
So if you love like David Hasselhoff cheese and just awfulness, and when they absolutely go for it and they've just put so much passion into the project, I just can't help but warm to it. So if you are rating this purely as a film, you're just looking at it as a moviegoer, this should go to the Phantom Zone every day of the week. And I think I know the old catchphrase that you're going to come out with, Chris, and I can't really disagree with that, because as the end product, it's terrible. But because of the blood, sweat, and tears that have gone into this, because of the awfulness, because of the fact that Ben Grimm actually shrinks when he turns into the thing, I just kind of love it. So, I can't give it higher, but I'm going to send it to Hell's Kitchen.
Well, I just want to thank everyone. This has been the last episode of the Comics in Motion podcast. Unbelievable.
I thought I might shock you with that one.
Yeah, and you, of all people, put Man of Steel in the Phantom Zone.
I did.
That is
just to wind you up a little bit more.
Disgrace, an absolute disgrace. Anyway, let's talk real now. Let's talk real with the reviews. Now, I do agree with you, Dave. I think you've made some great points there. We've said it in this episode. Genuinely, the Doomed documentary, and I'm a massive fan of documentaries. If I'm not watching our reviews or I'm at the cinema watching stuff, I love documentaries, Dave. There's a lot of things that I do like, and documentaries are one of my favourite things on Netflix, Amazon Prime, or on Sky, whatever. I just love factual things. It's just my, there's a story there, everything. And Doomed is absolutely fantastic. And I tip my hat off, as you said, to every single person who produced this film, because them poor people got absolutely bum rushed by powers that be above. They absolutely threw to the wolves with this one. It was an absolute joke. So in that respect, I do feel that my opinion on I've not been as harsh on this as I would have been last night. I genuinely wouldn't have, because I was absolutely ready to nail this and you to the cross, Dave, I'll be honest with you. And I will say it is the worst film I have ever seen. And I'm going to say up to this point, because I genuinely didn't think Howard the Duck could be beaten. But oh my God, has it been beaten? It is truly woeful. It's poorly put together. It's poorly acted. The effects. And I do agree, for $1 million, I only found that out afterwards, because I actually thought it was some sort of student film or something where they've, someone's had a bet and said, can we produce a film? So they've got everyone involved, to make the outfits, everything. In that respect, you'd have a bit of respect, but genuinely, it was still $1 million, right? Now, with inflation, that's probably about 5 million now, maybe 7, 8 tops, 26 years later. Can you produce a film on that? No, you can't. But truly, it is without doubt an absolute mess. It's just a mess. It's a joke of a film. That we've got, Reed Richards is definitely on the list. We need to be searching his internet search history. We've got all sorts of story plots that I just don't understand. I didn't understand the actual plots of the film. I just no. And I did say that Howard the Duck goes to the Phantom Zone with General Zod in the toilet or something along them lines. This one is with General Zod after he's been in the toilet on a night on the Curry and Bay. Then they flushed it, got into a sewage dump, and we've never been able to see it again, Dave. It is that bad for me. That is going in the Phantom Zone. I never want to mention it again. It's just a disgrace. A disgrace. So it's Phantom Zone, whatever I can add on top of it as well to make it even worse. And Dave is right. If you're a purist, please go and watch it. But if you're not, don't waste your life. There's other things you can be doing, clipping your toenails, taking the hairs out of your nostrils. I don't know. Please don't watch it.
I'm just trying to think from memory how many times you've uttered those words. I'm thinking Nick Fury, Generation X, Weird Science.
Yeah, Weird Science. So it's 5 times now.
Howard the Duck. Yeah. Now Fantastic Four. We just keep lowering the bar, and I am going to strive.
Oh, you love it.
So I said... this was my little challenge before the end of the year. I wanted to find one that I could make you say it again before the end of the year. And the god of comic book movies smiled down upon us and presented us this little gem.
Oh,
next year, though, it all starts again. So we'll try and find something that's worse. So brilliant, Chris, brilliant. I appreciate you taking the time to indulge me.
No, I've got to give you an Asgard, Dave, for doing me, because obviously we're such good friends. You know that I am absolutely laughing, tongue in cheek, thinking, Dave Orricks, you absolute, I'm not going to swear, but I'm absolutely calling you rotten. But fun, it's all fun and games because it's just funny because I keep saying these lines and it's becoming a cliche now. It's like you're trying to chase me and outdo me, but I genuinely now, I'm going to say this again, like I said, I can't see there's anything worse than that, Dave. I truly can't. I honestly can't. Please. I just can't.
Well, let's see. Hold my beer, as they say.
Amazing, mate. Amazing.
So, Chris, have you got any plugs for us?
I have, Dave. Yes, we've got the Chat Footy podcast. That's mine and your footy podcast and Ben's. Get over to Twitter at Chat Footy or on iTunes at Chat Footy podcast. Weekly show about United and Liverpool and a bit of Premiership mixed in there. At the moment, it's just purely centred around how depressed I am and my team, Manchester United. But Dave and Ben are absolutely loving it, but I'm sure it'll swing him roundabout. So, yeah, we have a few bits of fun, bit of banter. Bit of a forewarn, yeah, there is a little bit of swearing in there, which is slightly off-piece for us, but I think the way that our teams have been playing on and off, we're allowed to indulge us on that. So please get over there. Also, we're part of the Comics Bolt movement, aren't we, Dave, which is a collective of comic book creators. Please get on there. It's ourselves, obviously, we're the main movie comic book reviewers on there, and we've got all sorts of other podcasts as well. Around that thing. So get on to, is it the Comic Bolts on Twitter, Dave?
Yep, Comic Bolts on Twitter and the comicbolt.com if you just want to go to that in your normal web browser.
Good stuff. And what about yourself, Dave?
Yep, so if you want to get over to the Grassroots Coachcast, if you want to hear myself and Ben talk all about youth football or youth soccer coaching, all about the trials and tribulations that we have as coaches and try and coach these little people to become better people and better footballers as well.
Good stuff. And it is a great episode. I really enjoy him, Dave, especially when Ben goes off on one. It's always good. There's some good topics as well. And I think you're getting the recognition now after all that hard work you put into it. I've been seeing some of the comments online. So, yeah, good stuff, mate.
Yes, it's pretty humbling, actually. We get getting quite a few emails at the moment, and again, I think it's very much more niche than this sort of podcast. So there's many more kind of, coaches who felt a bit isolated out there and kind of emailing us going, oh yeah, kind of love what you're talking about. And that's me as well. So no, it's really, really humbling stuff.
Oh, good stuff, Dave. Now, Dave, I think it's only right that you should lead us out today.
Well, Chris, there's only one way I can finish this, and it's just one word. Excelsior!
Hi, Mrs. Storm. Johnny and Susan go to outer space with us.
Well, I don't know, dear. You'll have to ask them.
It's clobbering time.
I came up with something I called the Fantastic Four, about 4 superheroes. But instead of making them heroes who wore costumes, I figured I'm not going to give them costumes. Because I always felt if I had a superpower, why would I want to put on a costume? First of all, I'm too much of a show-off. I'd want everybody to know it's me. I would never wear a mask. And why would I need a costume? If I could jump over a building, I don't have to wear a colorful costume. I'll just jump over the building. At any rate, I didn't give them costumes, and I tried to make them real characters living in the real world. The hero wasn't just a perfect guy. He was a fellow like me. He talks too much. He's a scientist, quite boring. He was always boring the others because when he explained anything, he went on forever, and one of the other guys was always saying, "Will you shut up?" And the obligatory teenager in the group, instead of just like Robin with Batman, who just runs around and fights the bad guys with him, I made this teenager a guy who didn't want to be a superhero particularly. He was like I would have been when I was a teenager. He wanted to go out with girls and ride a sport car and so forth. And the girl, instead of an obligatory female who always has to be rescued and doesn't know who the hero really is, she was the hero's fiance. She knew who he was. They all knew who they were. And she also had a superpower that was as good as anyone else's. So she was a fighting member of the team. And the fourth guy was a monster. Something had happened to him, and he became very ugly and incredibly strong. And I used him for both pathos and humor.